Well, I think management has been focused on trying to moderate expenses, but what's key ultimately is that the top line performance appears healthy. So you have the core Google search business, you have YouTube, and you have newer businesses like the Google Cloud platform. And then, of course, you have areas like Waymo and autonomous driving. So we think there's a lot of interesting drivers here over the next few years.
Ali, we got paid clicks up 58%. I think consensus was about 50%, and the cost of those clicks fell over 20%. Is that driving this share price outperformance in the aftermarket?
Yes, a little bit to a certain extent. And on top of that, I should say that if you look at the traffic acquisition costs, they're, I think, around 23% of the advertising revenues, and that's a little bit lower sequentially than last quarter. So I think that's pretty good news, too.
Of the new parts of the business, Ali, the sort of bolt-ons, that, if you will, which are you most excited about, and which were you most impressed by in these numbers?
Sure. Well, I mean, as you know, these guys don't break out their revenues when you're talking about other revenues. But you look at other revenues, and it's grown, I think, around 37% year over year, which is very impressive. I think probably the main driver of that is the Google Cloud platform. I mean, we here at Morningstar, we're thinking that overall space, the overall cloud space is probably going to grow at around 35% a year. So all of that is pretty good news. And then, of course, as your other guests stated, don't forget about YouTube. I think there is a lot of growth potential in YouTube.
Dan, if we talk about the big picture, longer-term risks people have pointed out with regard to Google, I guess they would be regulatory restrictions, but also the potential for advertising market share loss to the likes of Amazon or even to these sort of speakers, the Alexa-type platforms. I would imagine nothing in these numbers gives you a reason to think that those threats are imminent.
From the data, it doesn't seem like there's a specific issue this particular quarter. What I would note, though, is when we think about the longer-term trends here, this is really a shift from offline to online. And when we think about Alphabet or Google, if they're able to deliver value to their users and to the advertisers, we think there's a significant runway given how much how strategic they're becoming to both sides. So there's certainly risks. We wouldn't discount any of that. But if the company continues to invest, to innovate, and demonstrate their place in the world that we're going into, we think there's significant upside from here.
So, Ali, I was going to ask you about the stock because you sounded pretty positive on the results for a guy who has a price target of $1,200, which is below the current share price.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it closed around our fair value estimate or the price target. It looks like we're probably going to have to adjust our numbers a little bit. But yeah, I mean, overall, in terms of the company as a long-term investment, we continue to think it's a very, very solid company with a lot of what we call moat sources and competitive advantages. And again, as one of your guests just pretty much described, the network effect that these guys have is very, very strong, and it continues to strengthen every quarter.
Dan, is the EU fine a one-off or more to come, whether it's from the EU itself or other regulatory bodies? And does that have implications for the likes of Facebook as well?
I think we're going to continue to see a lot of scrutiny for Google or Alphabet and Facebook and all of these companies. And what's important for them is to demonstrate and really educate their users in terms of what it is they're doing with the data, and the users have to agree that there's value to them. And so I don't think by any means that there aren't future risks, and what's critical for these management teams and these companies is to really demonstrate a willingness to work with the regulators, both in the EU, in the US, and globally. But if they're able to do that in a way that is staying true to what they're doing and also enabling the data and security of the users to remain safeguarded, then we think all sides could win.
How much does this raise the bar for Facebook on Wednesday?
I think it raises the bar a little bit, but Facebook has generally been executing quite well. They obviously were in the spotlight a lot more this past April, and so I think it behooves them and all of the companies to really demonstrate on a go-forward basis that their willingness to acknowledge these issues, embrace the fact that they need to change, and bring their users along with them. And so Facebook, Google, a lot of these other companies are facing these issues, but the management teams appear to be really tackling them head on.
And the revenue growth appears to be there in double digits.
In the case of Alphabet today, yes, and we think the name Alphabet continues to remain an attractive multi-year growth story.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.